I'm Evan Amato, and in this series, we explore how Dostoevsky's work and wisdom guides us to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our society, and our search for meaning. In today's episode, I'm joined by my friend Elliot Honeycutt. We're going to be speaking about Dostoevsky's faith, and we start with the dichotomy of suffering versus the sublime. So let's just talk about Dostoevsky's faith, maybe Russian Christianity in general, and the importance of transcendence.
So to understand the dichotomy that Dostoevsky presents between the suffering and the sublime, we have to ground that in the context of the faith of Russian Orthodox Christianity. And one thing that was is particularly unique about that faith is the idea of the Kenotic Christ. And what the Kenotic Christ means is this emphasis on the suffering and humiliation and sacrifice that Christ went through. In Western culture, it seems like we focus on other aspects of Christianity.
Mm-hmm. That's something that you see a lot, is that the focus of Christ changes among different cultures. So in the West, we're very much economically driven. We talk a lot about the debt that was paid on the cross. In Asia, that's in certain Asian cultures where there's more of an emphasis placed on honor. It's about Jesus doing something dishonorable, and entering into a position of shame almost, but how by doing so he brings other people to honor. And so in Russian Christianity, it's sounding like there's more of an emphasis on the suffering.
Exactly. In Crime and Punishment, Sonia is a Christ-like figure, and that was completely intentional on Dostoevsky's part. One part, it was to show the nuance of the soul, in that someone could be both at the very bottom of society in a profession that was seen as immoral and have complete commitment to Christian ideals. And in another way, Dostoevsky is able to show a path for how we can all try to live more meaningful and fulfilling lives. And it's through embracing our suffering, our challenges, the difficulties, the burdens that we need to bear, and seeing those as the ways that we not only develop but improve the lives of those around us.
Yeah, and one of the ideas Dostoevsky seems to lay out for us is that the greatest obstacle one can overcome is the obstacle of the self. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Sure. So, Raskolnikov, for example, it shows us a character who is caught between his commitment to his own ego and his desire to help others. And he's in a constant struggle to overcome the self, right? Sonia, on the other hand, is a character who has completely overcome herself. She believes in using her life as a sacrifice to spontaneously and immediately respond to suffering at every moment that she encounters it. On the other end of the spectrum, we have a character like Svidrigailov, who shows really the opposite path that Dostoevsky, that Raskolnikov can take. He could go in the direction of Sonia, let his compassion, his empathy, his values guide him. Or he could go in the direction of Svidrigailov and live a life devoted entirely to pleasure and pursuit of his own satisfaction. In the end, though, that life is not only void of meaning, but that life is a prison that is a prison which the actor in that life is building around themselves. And so Dostoevsky shows us the light again by illuminating the darkness.
Yeah, and what does Dostoevsky have to say about the importance of faith? Because obviously faith was very central to him, believed it was central to society. What does he have to say about its importance?
Well, growing up, coming from the Western perspective, I always thought of heaven and hell whenever I would think of God. I thought of the eternal implications of how my belief would affect the afterlife. No, God was this great judge. I didn't think about the suffering of Christ. I didn't think about the fact that that Christ had shared in my burdens, right? And that's why I struggled so much with this problem of theodicy that Dostoevsky talks about, which is the problem of evil. How could a good God create a world with so much suffering? And this problem is at the heart of the brothers Karamazov, which Dostoevsky would write later on after Crime and Punishment. And this problem of evil is incredibly difficult to resolve from the perspective of pure reason. But if we zoom out and think about the fact that Christ was incarnate, he lived as a man and took on so much suffering, more suffering than we can comprehend. He took on all of our suffering, and that God suffers with us. And then the problem of evil becomes resolved, because evil isn't something that God created that man has to live with the consequences of. But it's rather something that this whole universe is sharing in, and that God himself is suffering through. So Dostoevsky was able to show the importance of faith in resolving those types of issues, that there are certain things that we can never solve through the intellect alone, and we need faith to make sense of them. We need faith to make sense of our meaning, our purpose. We need faith to truly connect with others, because if we follow a philosophy of exclusive humanism, much like Svidrigailov, and we're focused solely on creating the perfect life for ourselves. We could even have good intentions and motives in that. There are so many people who have great values, but who don't have faith, and who believe that love is an important thing, that having compassion for others is important and valuable, but they might not have faith in something larger than themselves and humanity. And it's so easy in those situations, or in that circumstance, to get caught up in the decision-making process of figuring out what's in the best interest of humanity with all of your actions. But when a person chooses to live a life of faith, and Kierkegaard said, the philosopher Kierkegaard, who also really spent a lot of time investigating the struggles of having faith in the modern world, he believed that faith was a continual decision. Every single morning he would make the decision to have faith. And Dostoevsky was the same way, where he said that he doubted his whole life, and he would doubt all the way to the grave. But at the same time, he believed that there was nothing more beautiful and more virtuous and more loving than the character of Christ. And so he believed that was a faith worth pursuing. So it becomes reasonable, in terms of the wide sense, to have faith when you read through Dostoevsky's writings and think about the import of them. If you're committed solely to the intellect, committed solely to belief that there's mechanical materialism and every single thing can be predicted, and all things are simply their scientific composition, then there's no option for transcendence. And what faith provides us with, and what Dostoevsky shows, is it provides us with the capacity to transcend the merely physical realm. And that's whether our faiths are true or not, they still provide us with the capacity for transcendence, the capacity that there is more to life than meets the eye. And And we can never see that if all that we believe in are simply scientific laws.